mugwumps. They're everywhere. They're speaking out. Board meetings, City Hall, Town Square, Courthouse, State House, even the White House. They must be stopped. They are disruptors.
They're disruptors.
Welcome again, everyone, to Mugwump Media. And thank you all for joining us again here at Disruptor Central. Now, my name's Juanita Bright, and to my right on the soundboard microphone is Kevin. Say hello, Kevin.
Hello.
And joining us today are our good friends and fellow founders of Mugwump Media, Ms. Gretchen Garrity.
Hello.
And Mr. John Garrity.
Hello.
And Ms. Deborah Spindle.
Hey there.
Hey, thanks for being here. The gang is back together again. That's always a real pleasure to share some really good conversation time with all of you. Now, for those of you who are joining us but might have missed the very first episode, which is simply entitled, What is a Mugwump? We recommend that you go back to episode number 1 to get the full story of the 1884 Mugwumps. In short, it was a political uprising that elected Grover Cleveland, the only American president other than Donald J. Trump to have 2 non-consecutive presidential terms. And the Mugwumps movement, it was a backlash in their time against the corruption that had developed in the single-party governance that had been in place in the presidency and the national houses of Congress since the Civil War. And what's remarkable is that they were rebelling against their own political party. I'm telling you, folks, those same winds of change are blowing right now. Now, the reason for the podcast today is really to accomplish 2 things. After releasing the first podcast to introduce the history of our namesakes, the Mugwumps, the second podcast is to introduce you to the people behind Mugwump Media, the team behind the podcast that will be interviewing, contributing artistically, discussing topics of the day, and of course, attempting to answer the question. Here's the question, folks. How did we get here? We ask ourselves this a lot. And then the corresponding question, where do we go from here? Now, Kevin had the first unction that he and I needed to get involved with a podcast, but honestly, I think that we need to start with Gretchen and Deborah and John, of course, who actually first started a podcast several months ago. You guys first recognized that something was needed. You know, not just Gretchen, of course, is a journalist, a trained journalist, educated in it, but she knew that it needed to be more than that, and it needed to be voices going out over the airwaves, over the internet, that we needed to be telling people in a different way too.
I was always in print journalism, so doing a podcast is very, very foreign and hard for me. It was really Deborah who saw the need for that. She knew that it would reach an audience that just the blog and our other social media might not reach.
Being chronically online, most of the content that I consume is, in video format. So although her writing is incredible, stellar, she's so talented, she is really the foundation, the backbone, if you will, of Right to Win Ozarks. I knew that we needed to relay the information in a dynamic, visual way to spread it further.
And we're just babies at it, but
Yes.
we're getting better. And
Amateurs.
So it was just a real pleasure to hear your ideas. And I guess that's how we kind of came together one night after listening to you guys and your vision. We all came over to your place and started brainstorming.
Well, and somebody made the comment, I don't even remember who this was, but somebody made the comment, you can only go to so many meetings. And it's so true, because you've got a patriot community all over the country, all over the state of Missouri, and little brush fires of liberty, little campfires lighting up, lots of podcasts, lots of things, lots of meetings going on. But you can only be in so many places at so many times, at one time. So rather than, reinvent the wheel, it's a good thing to have a central hub to get some good information out.
There's been a serious lack of local news over the last few years, and we began to realize even the news we were getting was not always reliable. And we started hearing podcasts here and there, and we began to realize we were listening to them. So since our community didn't have a way for us to really get the local news other than phone calls and texts, we began to realize we needed to do something. And when we heard your podcast, Gretchen and Deborah, they interviewed us actually, and as they were interviewing me, that's all I could think of. Well, this would work a whole lot easier
It's
than
a great idea.
Yeah, this is a great idea.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
And whenever they put it, you guys did a great job with it. And when they put it out on YouTube, we really liked it. And that's when the idea really started springing from it.
I
Yes.
think it's actually the highest viewing podcast we've put out so far.
That's funny. That's really funny because we see ourselves as absolute chucklehead
And just
goofballs
think what'll
most of the
happen
time.
if you get somebody interested.
It's actually good. I know. Well, and something we talked about before we started doing the video or doing the audio is basically we all know. I mean, you can't trust the news anymore. You know, that became very apparent through the Trump years and then beyond. Over the last 4 years has been insane. The craziness. You can't believe anything. You see all the lawfare, all the nutty stuff, and whenever the election, of course, whenever that was rolling, and Trump started showing up on the podcasts, and eventually they basically bypassed the mainstream media, who everyone now recognizes as a bunch of liars. So,
Well, it truly is fake news, and that was an iconic description that President Trump promulgated, and that really galvanized me because I saw how effective he was in tearing them down, and they need to be torn down.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately,
There's nothing
him and
wrong
his
with
friends have had to pay a big price over a lot of that, but they had
Boy,
to
they
expose
have.
what we were listening to was not what we needed.
And that's true in our area too. The media in our area are basically PR. It's PR for moneyed interests. So.
Regrettably, yes.
Yeah, regrettably. And there's local news. There needs to be some local news about what's going on in Jefferson City because there's a lot going on, and citizens need to know. And basically, like I said, you answer the question, how did we get here? And what's the solution? How can the citizens that are out there that are listening, how can we all get together and do something that's going to help the situation?
Yep. Well, and we
Yeah.
began to hear a lot of wise people saying a lot of things that we thought, you know what, everybody needs to hear this. And ultimately, that was the podcast. Once you interviewed us, it's like, okay, now there is a way that these people can be heard by a lot more people because you can't go and speak to each and every group all through the community. Hopefully this will accomplish that goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it was you talk to people on the street and just around, and everybody knows something is going terribly wrong with
Yes.
the economy or the politics or even in the churches, and they need solutions, they need answers, and you go to different meetings. You were talking earlier about there's just too many meetings, and
You'll burn yourself out.
you do, and we all have different gifts and talents and passions, and I think this kind of thing will offer you a way to plug in. Because, like for Gretchen, it's writing. For Deborah, it's creative design, multimedia, and for you all, it's hosting Mugwumps as a hub for all of these different ways that you can get involved and not just complain about what's going wrong, but be a part of the solution.
Yes. That's John. First time I really met you was, you know what? We've known each other for about a year, maybe a little longer. But the first time we met, I was interested in your background and everything, and I loved talking to you. You were obviously a patriot, and that was evident. But then you kept you started inviting me to a Bible study, a prayer group, a men's prayer group, and I was resistant because I've been to many of them where it was health reports, and I just wasn't sure what it was. But you were very persistent, and you asked several times, and then one time you come up with a way to kind of corner me, I guess. I don't know if you deviously did this, but
He did.
I thought it was pretty ingenious that you asked if you could have that Bible study here because you thought it would be more, it would work better. I couldn't say no, and I did, and I thought, well, if it is what I think it is, then I can always find enough to keep myself busy. But I'll tell you, I am so thankful that you invited me, and I've got to be part of that group. That was kind of a same foundation there. There was Would you share a little bit about why that group got started?
Sure. It goes back to the beginning of the Patriot Group. Well, I was complaining to my wife and daughter, like I say people shouldn't do, and do something about it. And my daughter said, "Why don't you form a men's coffee group?" And I went, nah, probably how she does with some of the things I suggest. And then I thought again, and I said, yeah, I know a couple of guys who might come. And so we started doing that. But I thought, how am I going to do this without having some kind of chaplain? So I invited a local pastor, Reggie Mitchum, and I can't believe it. He said, yeah, I'll come. And so for a while there was only about 3 of us, but we would do what people do. We complained about things. And then Reggie would pull out scripture and say, yeah, but God says this about that.
Yes.
And we went out of there. And I did it because I was trying to inspire other men to get more involved and do stuff.
Yes.
And it really just helped me. But then the thing started to grow. I think we've got about 8 regulars and about 10 or 11 that come and go because they have to work and they can come when they can. But the thing I love about that group the most is it's a microcosm of what's going on. Juanita said brush fires all over the country.
Yes.
And one of the guys, Brian Rollman, said this kind of thing is happening all over the country.
Yes.
And it's not just happening with one denomination or another. We have, in our group, we have a couple of, I'd say, Baptists. We have an Orthodox Catholic. We've got evangelicals. I think we've got a Pentecostal, and we've got some non-denominationals too.
Yes.
And it's funny because we talk Bible.
Yes.
And it works.
Yes. Reggie Mitchum has a knack of, I love the way he starts them because he doesn't come in with a message. He does, I'm sure, but he comes in and he starts listening to the conversation. As the conversation plays out, eventually he starts opening the Bible and pointing us to scriptures that apply to each and everything we've talked about. He's very gifted at that.
He's that good. You give him a theme, if it's fear or boldness or whatever, he goes right into the scriptures that, without using Google.
Well, that's somebody who knows the Bible backwards and forwards.
Yes. Absolutely. He's got the most highlighted Bible I have ever seen.
Yep.
Funny story about that, sidebar, we were in a parking lot, and I said, growing up as a Catholic, not an Orthodox Catholic, a Novus Ordo Catholic, I was always told, you don't write in the Bible. And I said that to Reggie. I go, I'm just not comfortable writing in the Bible. He said, well, you need to get a Bible that you can write in. So we ran out, bought another Bible because we had the thick family Bibles and all that. But so I did. I got one, and now I'm trying to catch up with the highlighting, but I'm getting there.
Well, Deborah, this is an opportunity for you to go ahead and tell your dad you was right.
It is now on record.
Very good, very good.
Yes,
all
you
will
were
know.
Right.
It was also partially selfishly because my husband works from home, and I'm pretty lucky that my parents are also my closest friends, and I saw a need for my husband to get out of the house, is what it boiled down to. And so I was like meddling, as wives do. And I was like, how can I get him out of the house, but with people who are, you know, solid Christians and good men. And sorry, honey, if you're listening. But not sorry.
No.
So I think that was good. And I think what's also unique, although I am not invited to the men's coffee for obvious reasons, but it kind of highlights that there's this group that has formed in the community, which could only be brought together by God because of the various talents and interests. And it's just kind of naturally coalesced and formed into independent, thoughtful people who love God first. And that's kind of how I see this group as a whole, as people who is faith first, and they're willing to follow their beliefs through.
Yes. It's a very unique group.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the only one, though. Like John was saying a while ago, there's groups like this popping up everywhere.
I hope so.
Yes. There's quite a movement going on. There's an awakening taking place, and this is all part of it, and it all kind of keys together.
Well, and you know, I don't think that the hard, crazy times are over. You know, I mean, even though we've got some disruptors that are coming into office, and hopefully there's going to be some overturning of tables and things will be started to set right. You know what's going to happen. Sometimes when you get in the middle of a hornet's nest, the hornets start flying and stinging everybody, and things temporarily get much worse. So,
Yeah.
but I really believe, I just have this feeling. There was an old, from years ago, an old prophecy that talked about California was going to be ground zero for the beginnings of a big revival. It was in the 60s and 70s. We've talked about with Dr. Vaughn, and we're going to have a cool interview with Dr. John Vaughn coming up soon. He was a pastor during that time in the 60s and early 70s. I told him I was jealous of him because he was literally a Jesus Revolution pastor. But you know, things in California have gotten pretty wild and crazy. In many ways, the same crazy that was going on in the 60s. That was a absolute revolution. And I think this is the beginning of a revolution too. You know, the wildfires, the nutty stuff that's going on, you know, people not taking responsibility. This is the beginnings of what it takes to root out evil.
Yes.
You know, whenever people start to see.
There's a mass exodus at this point, and it's been going on a little while, and it just seems like it's increased right now. But California
is ground zero.
It is ground zero for ministry, too.
I think there are people there that are going to start making some important decisions, and I think it's going to spread. But one of the old, you know, Deborah and them were talking about brush fires of liberty or campfires. And I can remember one of the old prophecies that was spoken years and years ago. The man who spoke it is dead now, but he talked about the things that were going to happen, the hand of communism coming in, but that what was going to stop it, the pastor asked God in his vision, he said, well, what's going to stop it? You know, Lord, are we lost? Are we lost? And God said, no, because little fires will come in all over the place. And they'll take root, and that's where I got that, the campfires, because you see it. And Brian, that's confirmation. Look around you, folks. You see it. You know, you can see people that you would never have thought before that were spiritual in any way, and you can see them starting to open their eyes and looking around them and see what's really going on.
And something we really need to concentrate on is changing our thinking, because so many people are running from California, but I love talking to them, because I asked them, I said, so why don't we go take it back? And, you know, you see the look on their face, and they kind of tilt their head, and they realize, you know, we hadn't considered that. But I think it's time to start not just taking ground back and not just defending ourselves, but it's time to start taking things back. And we need to set our goal to take California back, to take our town square, all these things
and
we've
Missouri.
lost. And Missouri,
you know,
yes.
Gretchen said at one time, you said there's nowhere to run. Because you were talking about...
Well, we came from Texas, and we thought Missouri was deep red, and we found out the way the politics are structured is that we have elitist leaders who run everything, and they've been turning us leftward for a long time now, even though they've been in power since 2003.
Yes. Like 5 people that run everything.
That's right.
basically the other representatives, no matter how many things they put out, are not even going to make it to the floor. So you're right. You know, that is definitely not right.
I'm going to steer it back to Deborah.
That was exactly where I was
Well,
going,
very good.
just
Well,
so
I'll let
you
you
know.
do that then.
Gifts. The neat thing about this little group, and we're missing one. I won't mention who she is, but we have a hard time dragging her in because she's always busy. But so many gifts are represented in this little group. And yes, absolutely. I want to start with Deborah, too. Deborah has lots of giftings. She's a very neat and unusual lady. Yeah. Tell us, the mugwumps. I've had so many people say, what the heck is a mugwump? And the very first time that we sat together and had a little meeting and talked about what we should call our endeavor, Deborah popped up. And we all said, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah. Funnily enough, I had been playing a board game with my kids called Hugger Mugger. We got it at a thrift store. I've never seen it or heard of it anywhere else. And it's basically heavy on the vocab. And I pulled a card, and you had to guess what the word meant. And the word was mugwump. And I read the description, or I should say the definition of the word mugwump. And I was like, that's me. I'm a mugwump. Mm-hmm. And I was obsessed with that word ever since. And so I had just been saying the word mugwump any chance I could get. And during the meeting we had at your house, we had kind of, well, what would we call it? And, you know, of course, I'm going mugwump, 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 over and over and over.
Nobody knew what it meant.
Yeah, and these
What are you
poor people
talking
finally
about?
went, okay, fine, just be quiet. Here's a mug now. Yeah. So,
And you came up with the original picture, too, which is adorable.
yeah.
How'd you think of the dog?
Well, I think there'll be the first podcast discussing where mugwumps come from in the original political cartoon. And
Yes.
I didn't like the original political cartoon because it was ugly. So I just thought, you know, we need a distinguished little mascot. And we have a pit bull terrier at my house. And my mom also, we had just rescued an American bulldog. Literally, I found it on the side of the road, like the week of this meeting. And they have that cute little mug, you know, that little face. And they're just such sweet dogs. And they're an American breed of dog, too. And they're very tough. And I think we're all very tough. So I just played around with that. And
In a nice little 1880s business suit. They look all prim and proper,
his
but
little
there's
bowler hat.
they're these tough little dogs that you better watch out.
They are very tough little dogs. And, you know, they come from an English breed, too. It's just like,
Yes.
I don't know if you know dog. I was obsessed with dog breeds growing up.
Yeah.
And, they come from the English Staffordshire Terrier. And then Americans just made it better. All right. So the
We like
American
it.
Pit Bull Terrier is quite the breed. So,
We like it.
yeah.
Deborah's very good she's an absolute whiz at social media. She does a lot of things for her and her mom's podcast also. And we're hoping that Deborah will be willing to not just contribute with that, but also to be able to speak because she's very eloquent and she asks some questions that we love because she is that particular age group that needs to have some common sense voices coming over the airwaves, coming
Yes.
over the internet. So we very much enjoy and lots of gifting and I guess that's what I would say. As far as Gretchen is very, very articulate also, does very well. She's a natural interviewer. She comes up with great questions. Whenever we sit at We the People meetings, I'll hear a voice from the back, and I'll look back there, and there she is, and she's popping up with a question that everybody's like, oh, I hadn't thought about that, and it's usually Gretchen. So.
Well, thank you. But, you know, that like I said, the print comes naturally. The podcast is not a natural form for me, but I'm learning. So,
Yeah. Oh, we all are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. John.
but what I really want to
ahead.
talk about is the idea that you all conceived, what came together that night was that Mugwump Media would be this hub of different patriot groups that are all working in our area. And it's just such an important point.
Yep.
Well, and not just that there's different things going on, like Brian with Patriot Academy, but pastors too, because
Yes.
we had talked about that
Yes.
night,
Yes.
that you would have a pastor panel. I am so looking, because we had
Yes.
that down in Branson that time,
Yes.
and it was amazing.
Yes.
People have hard questions. What do you do if your pastor's doing this? And
Yes.
how do you handle that? And
Yes.
it was just,
And that's in the works.
Okay.
We've been trying to get it off the ground and getting some. We've got a couple of 2 or 3 episodes that we've got stacked up, so we'll be having some more info coming shortly. But
Something
that's
that
in the
I've
works.
probably overstated, but we could get all the right people elected into office, and we could have everybody in the national level, the state level, and local. And you know what? As a church, if we don't step up and start filling that gap and filling the role and leading people to Christ, then I'm not sure that any of it would do any good. You know, I firmly believe that this hinges on God's people and what we do as a church. Everything.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. John, John's amazing because you're very, we'll all be sitting around talking about things. And like Brian is always like, we'll follow the chain of authority. You know, he'll pop up with that. Well, with John will be sitting there with that look on his face, and we're all just kind of talking about stuff, and he'll come up with a statement that just sort of cuts through it. You tend to cut through, and you're very authoritative in the things that you say, and truthful, authoritative truth. That, and you're amazing at technical stuff.
I dabble. I think I'm credit to Brian, because I'm totally out of my comfort zone here. I'm finding myself in places that I would normally not be in, like sitting at a library board table or
Yes.
in front of a microphone or speaking out in a public meeting. That's not my comfort zone. I think most people, what do they say? The greater than the fear of death is public speaking. And I heard somebody say, it was actually on Joe Rogan's show, the thing that is only thing worse than humiliation is public humiliation. And
Oh, yeah.
I'm setting myself up for that here right now. But yeah, so I think we all need to stretch. We need to stretch so
It's
that we
time.
can grow. And that's, Brian Rollman did that for me. I went to his Bible citizenship class by Patriot Academy.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, right. I mean, a lot of the people that I'm friends with today are former military, and there's a camaraderie here. We share a lot, and we can lift each other up, inspire each other. We draw off each other, and we have a common enemy.
Yes. Yes, a common enemy sure does make it easier to focus on how to get along rather than how to one up one another.
Right.
And one thing I feel very strongly, I've told Gretchen this, and I've told Kevin this, I don't know if I had mentioned it to John, but I feel very strongly that in this day and time, the way that Satan gets in and divides the patriots and divides just the citizens, the common citizens that are trying to take back ground. There has been, like I said before, there's been a coup, but it's not been us. Basically, the government has taken over, and we're supposed to be the government, we the people. But the thing that Satan uses to divide us up is the spirit of offense.
Yes.
And it's very easy to fall victim to that.
Yes.
And that's something that Kevin and I have really been, we can make allies. We don't have to agree with every little thing, but we can make allies, and we can be friends, and we can fight for a common cause. That's huge.
Right. You know, we used to all know how to disagree and still be friends, and even disagree very vociferously.
Yep.
But remain friends and colleagues and things like that. And we've kind of lost that because the inroads that have been made on how political correctness and things like that
Very
have
much so.
destroyed a dialogue between
much so.
citizens in this country. So we do need to reclaim that, get
yeah.
it back, and learn not to take offense.
Oh, yeah. Even if you feel it, because you're always going to feel things. But sometimes you say, Father, Lord, take this away. You know, I'm blocking this. I'm turning away from it. It's not here. I'm moving forward.
The enemies come in to steal, kill
And destroy. That's right, because that's what's wanted, right? That's what he wants to do right now, is to just squash everything.
And it's time to tell him no. We're done.
Time to tell him no. That's right.
We're getting together, we're meeting, we're figuring things out, and you don't have a chance.
Amen.
There we go. Well, do we have any other neat stuff to visit with before we sign off?
I just have one thing, a scripture that has been rolling around for about a week. And it's so funny, this morning my daughter was doing Bible study and she sent me the exact same one that's kept coming up to me over and over. And it's Ephesians 5, and it's just literally verse 11, although verses 8 through 14 are great. But verse 11 says, "And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them."
Yes.
And I think that's what Mugwump Media
Yes,
is going to
absolutely.
do, is to expose what needs to be exposed so that it can be disposed of, and we can go forward.
Inform the citizens. What Deborah said. She said, "I'm not a politician. I don't like politics. I'm a citizen with a phone." I love that because you represent so many people and so many people in your age group. And I think it's two things. It's informing, and also, what are we going to do about this? Mm-hmm. Because I think that sometimes, there's a show called Flashpoint. Not everybody watches it. I love it because they've got something they call the Flashpoint Army. And literally, he will have politicians on, and they'll talk about what's going on. And Gene Bailey, he'll say, "All right, Flashpoint Army, you know what to do." And they will literally crash the websites, and that's what it's going to take is people. Because how many people do you know that say, "Well, I want to help, but I don't know what to do. What do I do?" All separated, it isn't going to make that much of a difference. But if you are together, if the people are together, that's when they start to fear us.
Yes.
Because they realize when we speak with a big megaphone, they know that they better listen.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love about Mugwump, the idea in the Ozarks, is you watch what's going on in Washington. We can't fix that. I mean, I think Jesus said, "Take the beam out of your own eye. Then you'll be able to get the splinter out of Washington, D.C. or whatever it is." But
right.
we this is, how do we get involved? This is where you live.
That's right.
This is where you get involved.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think too, like the issues nationwide are a lot of you're treating symptoms, and we need to get to the root cause of the issue,
Yes.
and that's people locally are not involved.
Yes.
They don't care. They're overwhelmed. There's too many meetings, whatever it is, but they're not involved, and we need to get involved at the grassroots level. And Mugwumps is about empowering people to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Grassroots.
Yep.
How did we get here, and how can we move forward? How can we be successful?
First one I heard say, you need to go get involved in your school boards and in your city councils and local library boards and stuff. That was General Flynn. And when he said that, I thought the general of our country, when our country's in trouble, is worrying about our neighborhoods. And you know what? He was right. He was absolutely right.
Because that's where things change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
From the ground up, and as we know very well, when the powers that be at the Capitol put us all in the basement of the Capitol when they were voting for Speaker of the House and swearing in the new representatives, they purposely put us all down in the basement. Very, very significant. There was less than 100 people probably.
You couldn't fit them
and there
in there?
was room up in the gallery.
Wild.
And
Those
they
basement
would
rooms were
not
absolutely
allow
full. There was no seats left.
Yeah, they would not allow the citizens down there, but it was very instructive for me because when you start at the ground level and go up, you're going to get them.
Well, and if they truly were not afraid, they would not have been afraid to have us up there.
That's
Voices of dissent are always scary to the ones that are in power. Look at the Mugwumps, one-party rule, and it eventually became corrupt.
Disruptors.
Disruptors. That's when the rise of the mugwumps. That's right. There we go.
you go.
Got a bunch of mugwumps sitting around here, and I have a feeling there's a bunch of them sitting out here listening to us.
Amen.
Well, folks, we have had a great time today. It's always good to visit with these folks, good friends. Thank you all for joining us. Like, share, follow, spread the news, spread the word. I think probably you all have some neighbors that are mugwumps that might like this too. We'll be back again soon. Not sure which is going to be the next interview. We've got some good stuff in store, but we're going to start putting it out probably weekly here very shortly. And we'll be putting it up on different platforms, things that you're going to enjoy. And we hope that you all have a great rest of the day wherever you are at. We hope you come back and join us again soon for more conversation that hopefully is going to keep you informed, inspired, and always independent. God bless.